In 2025, I've been focused solely on sewing warm weather clothes. I had a lot of holes in my wardrobe, and I needed some fresh new things for spring and summer this year. These were also things that could go on a holiday or vacation. I took 5 me-mades with me on a trip to London, and in this video, I will tell you if they had a good time, if they were the right things to take with me, and I'll also share with you a few sewing souvenirs that I picked up along the way. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Janine. It's great to see you, whether you're a new viewer or a returning one. Today I'm wearing a tunic that I made not too long ago. I talked about it in this video, and I used the Tunic Bible book for the pattern for this particular tunic. In this video, I'll tell you about the 5 me-mades that I took with me, what they got up to, where they went, what they saw. Then I'll show you the few little things that I picked up along the way. And then at the end, I'll show everything that I took in case anybody's interested in the full packing list. There are timestamps in the chapter list down below. So if you'd like to skip forward or backward, it's very easy for you to do that. My sister Julie and I went over to London for a week. We were gone 8 nights because we flew overnight when we went over. The purpose of the trip was for us to spend some time together and also for me to show her my favorite places in my favorite city in the world. We spent our days sightseeing, eating, shopping, and there was a lot of walking. Everything that I took on this trip had to be comfortable, easy care, so hopefully could be washed in a sink, and everything had to coordinate because I took just a carry-on with me. As I mentioned, I took 5 me-mades plus some ready-to-wear stuff. And of the me-mades, there was definitely a winner and a loser. One thing that I loved wearing, one thing that I kind of wish that I had left at home. The winter garment was Butterick 6731, which I lovingly refer to as the tie front blouse. All of the me-mades that I took with me were made in 2025. This was made in 2025, and it's a polyester fabric. I just love the shape of this. And even though it was poly, it didn't feel too warm or too cool. The weather in London was just spectacular. It was beautiful and warm. I only needed a jacket a couple of days. So this top did quite well in warm weather. I wore this top twice. The first day that I wore it, we went to Fortnum and Mason for tea, for afternoon tea with dear friends of mine. And because we were going to Fortnum and Mason, I kind of dressed it up a little bit. I wore it with some ready-to-wear ponte trousers and a ready-to-wear knit blazer that I've worn on many vacations. And it felt just right in a really nice, fancy department store tea room. After we went to Fortnum and Mason, then we went out for a long walk around a bunch of iconic London places, including the Mall, Buckingham Palace, St. James Park. We walked over past Canada House to Trafalgar Square, then down to Westminster Abbey and the Houses of Parliament. So this blouse was all over London. I wore it a second time on our last full day in London when we were in Windsor. And that day I paired it with black, ready-to-wear, loose-fitting, wide-legged, kind of floaty fabric trousers. And again, it was just right there. It was a warm day, so I didn't need a jacket. And that day, the blouse got to see the outside of Windsor Castle because it was closed. It's closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays these days. And then it wandered around a basically empty town of Windsor because the castle was closed and there were no tourists there. It was just us. So we went into a pretty little church, down a bunch of cobblestone streets. We stopped into several different shops, went into a nice restaurant. We were the only patrons there. And then we walked along the Thames and saw beautiful swans and people who were out just walking on the water, enjoying the gorgeous day. Again, this top was definitely the best choice that I made. And it's one that I'm very happy that I sewed. And I'm considering making another version of it in a different fabric in the next couple of weeks. The second blouse that I took with me that I think was a good choice was New Look 6707 in Liberty Tana Cotton Lawn. And I talked about that one in this video. I wore this just once, could have definitely been worn a second time. And when I wore this blouse, we went to the Victoria and Albert Museum and we met a dear friend of mine, Lisa, who's Mabel the Mannequin on Instagram. And we toured around the Victoria and Albert Museum and it felt just right in that museum because it felt a little bit dressy, but it was super comfortable. And I wore it with the black wide-legged drapey trousers that were so comfortable. So that day we went to the V&A and then we went out and walked. I did carry a jacket with me that day. We walked through Hyde Park, Kensington Gardens, over to Marble Arch, and down to Oxford Street, where we stopped and we had dinner. Our feet were very tired. And then we hopped on to a double-decker bus and went back to our hotel. I was super happy with that blouse. And there were a couple of times when I thought, I should wear that again. But it definitely is a valued piece in my new wardrobe. The third Me Made did not get to see very much of London because it's the top that I wore when I flew home. That's the only time I wore it. And it's a new top that I made just the day before we flew over. It's a Love Notions La Bella Donna tee. And I know many of you recommended that top, and I can see why you like it. It sews up so quickly. Now, it didn't get to see much of the UK, but it was worn on the plane home, and it was just right for that because it had the 3/4 length sleeves that were warm in case the plane was a little bit cold, but not too warm. I'll say that I don't think I picked the right fabric for this particular make. I love the version that is shown on the Love Notions website. The beautiful model, I'm sure that's the maker, with the aqua version. It's so pretty. And her fabric is quite drapey, whereas mine, it was just a really basic jersey. And I think it just doesn't have enough drape to do this pattern justice. So while the top was okay, I think that I would make it again in something different. And this particular top will likely be an at-home top. It wasn't really special enough to take with me on a trip. The fourth Me Made that I took with me was another one that was new, something I sewed up quickly before we left, and that was another Cashmerette Concord t-shirt. I think I've used this pattern 6 times now, and this particular version had a V-neck on it. This t-shirt got to go to the best places. I wore this on the Sunday when we did a hop-on, hop-off bus tour of London. So it got to go all over the city of London, across the Thames a couple of times, and it hopped off and went to Harrods, and then it hopped off and it went to Liberty. I felt very underdressed in Liberty, wearing a pink t-shirt and wide leg jeans. Kind of wished I'd worn something better, just because it was Liberty. I'm going to tell you a touch about Harrods and Liberty in a second, but talking about the top. I had made this in basic cotton jersey, and on this particular version, I don't think there was enough stretch in the neckband, even though I've used this type of fabric before. So I wound up having to do a quick and dirty adjustment so that I could wear this top. because the back neckband stood out so much that I had to put in 2 little darts in the back so that it would lie flat against my back, which was quite unfortunate. It was okay. It's okay for wearing grocery shopping here at home. It should not have been in Liberty. Let me tell you a little bit more about Harrods and Liberty. Harrods, of course, is crazy expensive, has beautiful stuff. It's super intimidating. There was one sewing thing there. I took a picture of because I wanted to share it with you. They had the most amazing Miele ironing board. And I think it has steam that goes into the board, and then it's got the big steam reservoir for the iron. It was 1,799 pounds. I know all of you will appreciate that. None of us will ever own this, but it was cool to see. At Liberty, well, at the moment, they're celebrating their 150th anniversary, so they have a truly amazing display. It's called the Patchwork Collective, and it is patchworks that artists have sewn, artists and creators and crafters have sewn, and they were all put together into this massive house that goes up through the center of the Tudor building. And in essence, it is all of Liberty. And it was so heartwarming to me to see sewing being at the heart of Liberty. The display is only on until late July. I know many people won't be able to see it. They've got a really good website that talks about it. And there are also stories from the artists who participated. And I've linked that down below if you're interested and you want to read about it. So pink t-shirt got to go all over London, and then it got to go to Harrods and Liberty. Almost the most slovenly thing I took with me. The fifth and final me made was a t-shirt that I made earlier this year, linked up here. Very soft cotton jersey, and I added ruched sleeves to this particular t-shirt. Cherries print fabric. I wore this twice. The first time was on a day when we just hung around the area that we were staying in, which was near the Angel Tube Station in Islington, and went for a little walk through the markets because it was Saturday. And then we went down to Ray Stitch, which is a very nice fabric store on Essex Road in Islington, and looked around there. Was enticed, but did not buy any fabric. I did buy a couple of little things. And then we wandered back down to Camden Passage, went into a little yarn store there, bought a couple little things there, and generally just enjoyed the day. And we finished off the day with a friend having proper fish and chips and sticky toffee pudding at a non-tourist fish and chip shop. The second time that I wore this top was on a day when we went to the Tower of London, and we spent a few hours at the Tower of London and saw all kinds of interesting things. They had one of the ravens out, a live raven, right there where you could stand within 2 feet of it. I'm freaked out by birds, so I did not want to get very close to it. They also had ceramic poppies scattered around in different installations in commemoration of the 80th anniversary of VE Day. From the Tower of London that day, we did a little shopping at some of the regular stores, including Marks and Spencer and other little shops along the high street. Once again, hopped on the tube as we had been doing the whole time and went back to the hotel. That top was my poorest choice for packing. It's very comfortable. It's not, I didn't feel that I was dressed appropriately for London in that. It was just too casual. And I tried doing the half tuck thing in my black pants, and it just never looked really right. That's one thing I wish that I had left at home and had not taken with me. And instead, I wish I had brought something that was a little bit more elevated. And I did buy a few things. let me tell you about the few things I bought. It truly was just a few things. When we went into Ray Stitch, all I picked up was a remnant, a sashiko stencil, and a couple of other little notions. That's all I bought. I didn't have a lot of room in my case, so I didn't want to buy a lot of fabric. We went into the Loop yarn store, and I'm kind of yearning to learn how to crochet. So I bought this book that's called You Will Know How to Crochet by the End of this book. I hope it's good for its word. And I also bought a little embroidery kit. I've since learned they sell the same kit here in Calgary. Souvenir. And then Liberty. I'm sure that you're most interested in what I bought at Liberty. I bought 2 pieces of fabric. Both are Liberty Tana Cotton Lawn. Both are going to be sewn by the end of July, let's say. The first piece is this very pretty pink fabric, and it's a recreation of a previous print from Liberty. That's one of the things that they're doing for the 150th anniversary, is recreating some old prints. This looks like 1980s to me. I'm not sure. I'm planning to use this to make some sort of a sleeveless top. That's likely what I'm planning to make. And I will make that by the end of July. The second piece of fabric. I wasn't really planning to buy a second piece of fabric, but I walked back through the haberdashery and they had a cowboy shirt made up in a very similar fabric. I am sewing cowboy shirts this year for the Calgary Stampede for me to wear. So I bought this piece of very pretty, delicate blue floral Tana lawn to make a cowboy shirt. And the pattern that I'm going to use is the new Love Notions cowboy shirt pattern. I'm going to start working on the toile this afternoon. Those are the few things that I brought home. There's one more me made that I forgot to tell you about. I made Julie a linen tunic. She specifically asked me for a linen tunic, so I made her a tunic. I had her measurements. The top was still a little bit too big, and I have to apologize. I didn't get any good pictures of her wearing it, but she wore it the day that we went to the V&A, and she seemed to be happy with it. This was a simplicity pattern. It's a nice pattern. I did make one change to it when I sewed it. I had recently seen a video by Fresh Press Patterns where Joanna had said, these are things that you can do so that your me-made garments look more handmade and less homemade. And she recommended ditching the facing on a lot of tops and instead using self-bias. And that's exactly what I did on this. And it turned out really well. I will absolutely use that tip again. So that was the 6th me made, but because I didn't wear it, it doesn't count in the other 5. What all did I pack for this trip? I took a carry-on size rollerboard and a tote bag. I had 4 bottoms. Pretty sky blue, ponty, wide leg kind of yoga pants that I wore on the plane both ways. Wide-legged, light wash denim jeans. These are all ready to wear. Wide-legged black poly floaty pants, and a pair of better quality, kind of elevated navy blue ponty trousers. In addition to the 5 me mades that I told you about, I wore a navy blue boat neck t-shirt on the flight over, spilled my dinner on it, and I threw in a pretty lavender colored ready to wear top that has an interesting zipper neck and didn't wear it at all. And I had 2 toppers. One was kind of a stone-colored sweatshirt fabric bomber jacket, and then the knit blazer that I told you that I wore to Fortnum and Mason. And I took 2 pairs of shoes, a pair of very nice new tan-colored leather trainers, and then I decided to throw in a pair of Skechers in my bag. I'm very glad I did, because my new shoes. My new trainers killed me after 3 days. That's all I carried, and I had just enough room to throw in minimal jewelry, makeup, and toiletries. That's it. That's all I took. What I wish I had done. I wish I had taken at least one fewer pair of pants, one or two fewer pair of pants, and also probably at least two fewer tops, and instead thrown in a dress. Going to a place like London, you see a lot of people wearing dresses every day, and you would not look out of place in a dress, walking down the street wearing your Skechers, or under a jacket in a really nice restaurant. I have a lot of dresses in my closet. They don't get worn often enough, and this would have been a perfect opportunity. I probably should have left out the two casual tops, the pink Cashmerette top and the Cherries top, and instead thrown in a dress, and I would have been just fine. I have two questions for you today. The first is, do you sew for vacations, or do you sew everyday garments and then take them on vacation? There's a case for both, definitely. There's certainly times when I've sewn things that are specifically for a place that we're going or an activity that we're going to do, and maybe those garments don't get worn a lot in real life. And how about packing? I've become kind of a minimalist packer lately, but there's really a case for taking all of the wonderful things with you when you travel. If you have to carry the case around, take as much as you want, right? I think for many of us, I know for a long time when I traveled, I used that as an opportunity to wear all of the beautiful clothes that I had made that never saw the light of day in real life. So, where do you stand on? How do you figure out what you're going to pack? How much you're going to pack? How do you decide what you're going to sew before you go away? Do you sew everyday things or do you sew special things? Or, of course, it could be a combination of all of the above. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope everything is wonderful in your world, and I look forward to seeing you again really soon. If you like this video, you might like this video where I showed you some of the things that I had taken on a previous trip.